software. So welcome everyone for joining us today. Wherever you are in the world, we're super excited that you've decided to come in and spend some time with us. My name is Ashley McGinnis. I'm the communications manager here at Introhive, but more importantly, today I am your moderator for this discussion. So joining me today is my boss, Bart Melenda. At Introhive, we have Patrick Edmonds from Proposify. Hopefully I'm saying everyone's company name wrong or right, sorry, don't mind me. We have Jackie Murphy, who is joining us from Ovic, and Andrea Kayal from Electric. So I'm gonna go ahead and go through two quick housekeeping items. First things first, if your kid, your husband, your boss, your dog, the Amazon guy shows up at the door and you need to leave, don't panic. We will give you a copy of this recording afterwards. And I invite you to go ahead and drop your questions into the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And by all means, hop into the chat, join in, share your thoughts. My colleagues will be in there as well. And I'm going to try to share the right screen this time. Hopefully that's showing the right one. I'm not sure what's happening. So maybe we can just jump in with some introductions, and I'll let Jackie, I see you're lighting up on my screen right now. So maybe you can introduce yourself.
Sure. So Jackie Murphy, I run marketing at Ovic. We are a company based in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, and we develop software for IT service providers and IT teams to help them have better visibility into their company networks.
Awesome. Andrea, do you want to go next?
Sure. Andrea Kyle, Chief Marketing at Electric. Very similar to Jackie, we are too serving the IT industry, but have been leading marketing teams in New York for many years. So looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Patrick?
Hi, I'm Patrick, Chief Marketing Officer at Proposify. We're online business proposal software, helps sales leaders get visibility and control into their closing and sales process.
Awesome. And last but not least, Bart.
My name is Bart Melenda. I lead marketing at Introhive, and Introhive is a revenue acceleration platform, which we help revenue teams with revenue, relationships, and retention.
And we all love revenue.
Making it rain. That is our job. All right. So I think this first question that we had sort of gone around a little bit before this session today is, and I'll direct this one to you, Jackie, I'll pick on you again. How much tech is too much tech? There's a ton of it out there. So how, what's the threshold?
So I will say that we are at a threshold right now of too much tech. So just to put that out there. I was joking just before we started the webinar proper. We all put together slides of our tech stacks to share with the folks participating in the webinar today. And I have to tell you, I felt a little bit sick to my stomach when I looked at how much tech we are using. Now, that being said, tech is enabling everything for us right now. So it's a super critical piece of our marketing and revenue programs at Ovic. But there is a lot of it, and managing the tech, everything from selecting the tech, being aware of what the tech is, to managing it on an ongoing basis is just, it's all consuming, and it's way too much. So as the old person potentially on the call, too much tech.
Does anyone else have any thoughts on that as well that they'd like to hop in with?
I mean, we try to procure one technology for everything that we feel like we shouldn't have to hire a human being for. For example, like one technology that gave us a lot of leverage was Syndoso. We were not able, we didn't have to hire FTE, which even if we hired a marketing coordinator in New York for, let's just say I don't know, $60,000, the technology is $20,000. So where we can make the ROI trade-offs, we tend to put in the technology as opposed to people.
I'll just add in on that. I think with these technology add-ins though, my decision-making criteria is just like yours, where machines kind of get the priority at this point from a cost savings perspective, but also just from a longevity of life perspective, because I feel that it would be easy to get into a situation to hire up for a lot of otherwise kind of manual tasks where if we're not using them in a year and someone sort of signed up for that role, there's an obligation to kind of figure out what to do with that person. And I guess technology has kind of created an opportunity to solve people problems with automation, but then doesn't give you the challenges of, if you don't want to use that anymore, then what do you do with those resources or that person? And so here we are, it seems like, with a lot of tech to solve everything.
Yeah, I'll echo all of that. I think it starts with that FTE question of like, what value are the people in your team bringing? And then how does the technology aid those people in doing their job better? And if it's not answering that question, if the technology is not making the rest of your team more effective and more efficient, if there's any sense of it bringing down and not delivering the results that you expected it to have, like what was the business case for bringing it in? Do you relook at that business case 6 months in, 12 months in, or do you just say, well, we have this now? How often do you reevaluate that sort of thing? So I like to think about it as, do you have the right people that are adding value in your team, and is the tech making their jobs more effective to whatever your success metrics are?
Can I riff off that a little bit? So you all brought up really excellent points. And one of the things that I really struggle with is the management of the technology, right? So you make the purchase decision, someone on your team makes the purchase decision and has ownership for that piece of technology. As the CMO, who has a bunch of folks who have made a bunch of decisions in terms of technology that they need to enable their programs, how do you manage that? How do you have systems in place? Do you have processes in place to, revisit it on an annual basis? Is there a cadence that we should all be going through where we, even just knowing when it renews, because all of them have in the contracts 60-day notice, or it automatically renews. So what are you doing to manage your tech stacks? I need tech for that.
Yeah, right. There is a tech for that, actually. We remove all auto renew from contracts, but we have a very laborious process for getting a new technology, even if it's like $1. That way we try to remove any ghost SaaS products we have around, just licenses everywhere. So we make the process of getting it hard, and we turn off auto renew. So every time you want it again, you have to ask for it. So.
How many of us have sorry, Bart.
Go ahead, Patrick.
I was going to ask how many of us have a marketing operations role within their team that owns sort of tech stack? I'm just curious. We have one full-time person that doesn't necessarily own everything, but the majority of it. I'm curious, everyone have that role, and is it delegated, or does it fall to you?
We have a marketing operations team, a great marketing operations team, actually. And they do manage a number of these systems, but not all of them, right? So when I put my chart together, I really tried to think about it from a revenue perspective, because a lot of these technologies do cross a number of our departments, our teams. And so we are responsible for some of the tech, but not all of it. But even within marketing operations, it's tough. It's tough to keep your arms around all of the different systems that are in the tech stack.
So how do you solve for the zombies that are sitting in the background, maybe not being used? Is it the marketing operations person to check usage, or how do you all figure out that it's not being utilized? We
did a pretty big call, if you want to call it that, last year, just COVID nature of the unknown. And it came from finance, it didn't come from our team. Basically, is just not at risk, but if there are things that we have and we're not paying for, let's use this and this was globally across the entire organization, because we are a technology heavy company. We like our tools, and there will be people that have the company card that will sign up for something, even if it's $25 a month, and maybe forget about it, and it may auto renew, and that stuff adds up time after time after time. And luckily we didn't have to do that during kind of COVID times, but it was a good exercise to do regardless. And I think maybe could be an annual thing that your team should consider. Yeah, it certainly comes up during finance discussions where it's how much budget should team need? Oh, we got to check our subscription software. Let's make the list. That's the force maneuver, I guess.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been thinking about is actually allocating the software line item to the different areas of the marketing team. So right now we have a marketing tech budget, and we have a marketing programs budget. And I'm thinking of taking the marketing tech budget and smushing it into the marketing programs budget, so that when they're trying to figure out how much money they have for their programs, they see the tech line item. And if they're not using it, that becomes an area that they can pull from for their programming. So just making it a little bit more transparent and visible, I think is one of the key things we need to do.
Yeah. And if you have to force people to make the trade-off between whether or not they put it in an investment that would make the company more money or technology, like maybe it'd be self-policing. And just one note on marketing ops. It was siloed when I joined Electric. Sales ops, marketing ops, and CS ops lived under each function, but we made revenue operations, put it under finance so that it can be Switzerland, and then all the ops people just report in there, which has been fantastic because actually gave us better line of sight into how the data is moving between like very top of the funnel all the way through to like LTV.
Does that make it harder to get stuff piloted or tested, since you probably have to put together a bit bigger business case or usability?
Ops are dotted into me, marketing ops. So like I can, that was one of the requests is like, can you not make it process over progress? Like we just need to get shit done. Can you just get out of the way? And yes. So just making sure that there's not too much in the way of that BART, even though it reports into finance, the actual practical stuff is happening with our team.
On a similar thread there, and I'll throw this one over to Patrick. When do you know that you're outgrowing the technology that you have right now? What are you looking for that sort of turns on the light bulb that says, okay, it's time to upgrade? Or, when do you ditch something if you feel like it's maybe you're not getting the ROI on it?
Yeah, I don't know if this is unique to us, so I'd love to hear what everyone else's experience, but I think a lot of times companies will preemptively jump their software before they actually need it. And I've seen this come a few times, like if only we had this tool, we would be able to hit this number. And it's kind of that promise of whatever the business case from that perspective. And that goes back to how often are you auditing your business case after you make that choice and going back to say, is it really just an excuse to like, okay, we're upgrading our software so that we can hit this better number within our KPIs, but does it happen? And then you just get stuck with something that's a little bit more expensive and your number stayed flat the entire time. And I think we need to be looking at that, not just taking it moving forward and then holding on to that. Are you leveraging the tools that you have for as much as they have value? Ask that question. And if it is, you're hitting a wall in terms of this technology just doesn't need to do what I need it to do. I've hit a barrier with, I want to do this function. I think it's predictable if I do this function that I'll get ROI out of the other end, and I can't do it with this tool and technology. That's when you go to market and look to see what else is out there, and you do your technical due diligence and you put that business case in place for doing that. But you still need to measure whether it moved the needle or not, and whether that promise was resolved or made from that perspective. So I think in general, we love tools. We love the little bit of shiny object, and we want to do more. We want to be scaling and growing our technology companies, but sometimes we might even shoot a little bit further.
I find you've identified too that one of the things that always irks me when I hear about CMOs entering into a new company and starting fresh, or like, let's blow it all up. This is the right way to do it, or this is the way I've done it in the past. And I just always find that peculiar because, we all have our bias on what we want to use. And so some of these come from a Pardot environment and they want to rip out Marketo because Pardot's better. But like, is there really going to be a difference based on if something's already got momentum, adoption, and usability? And I find myself when I joined Introhive, it was all about like, don't break anything is the first thing. Like this business exists here for a reason, and it's sort of gotten this far. Certainly, it has to be an assessment of the tools and what's happening in advance of rip and replace. Because I agree with you that incremental feature gain on something versus adoption usage, and if there is good strength around the stability of what's already been implemented versus the time to implement something else, it is a trade-off. And I think a lot of CMOs, in my opinion, are bad actors in that, in terms of wanting to have their own hand on something or their own influence and just implementing a lot of just new stuff.
Yeah, I'll say often it looks like the grass is greener. Sometimes it is legit greener. One of the things that really frustrates me about buying tech is the lack of transparency in buying tech. So we are all fabulous marketers, and we say all of these fabulous things about all of this marketing tech. And when you get behind the covers, often what's been sold to you is not what you expected. And I don't know if there's a mismatch between the buyers of the technology clearly articulating what they need the technology for, or the need of the sales team to just hit a quota and not really listening to the needs of the customer before they sell them a new technology. But more than once, we've been bitten by, sorry, we don't do a trial. You just have to spend tens of thousands of dollars on this product, and you have to sign up for a year-long contract. And we promise you all of these fabulous things. And then when you get in, you see what you've actually purchased. It's incredibly frustrating. So there are absolutely times where we've looked at the technology that we have and we've said, yeah, we need to upgrade, or we're actually in the process right now of doing a full evaluation of our Salesforce instance, because we've been using this instance of Salesforce for the last 8 years, and it's time to clean it up, right? We're now into, hyper growth scale mode, and a lot of the things that we built into Salesforce as a startup company just don't help us anymore. They're getting in the way. We love Salesforce, super critical piece of our tech stack, but we need to fix it, right? So it's not a rip and replace, it's a rebuild to make sure that it's good for us moving forward. But I would love a little bit more, if there's one thing that I could ask for in terms of like looking at the grass is greener, and is that actually something that is better than what we currently have, is a bit more transparency in terms of what these marketing solutions actually do for us. Because it's incredibly frustrating on the back end to buy something and, a bunch of empty promises.
It's funny, as I don't know, maybe it's because of my age, but like the older I get, the less I want to have involvement in like procuring the technology, Jackie, like, because I'm with you. It's like, this is like I'm adding very little value, I feel like, in going through a process of evaluating big technologies. Like, I mean, obviously like a CRM or something like this is like a massive decision, but this is in part why I feel good about moving it to revenue operations, where I feel like they're just better equipped to figure out how the data is moving between each other, because it's getting very complicated. There's all these levels now of things like data science as a service, like things like just, above my head. I know we need them. I think we should get them, but like evaluating them becomes very cumbersome.
Yeah, I find it's more about risk mitigation at this point than what are the features and functions, right? Like, how do I get out of this contract if I need to get out of this contract?
Totally.
Do you all speak to other customers when signing up with a new vendor to ensure that they're getting what they thought they were getting? Yeah, that seems like
usually
that must be practice.
But it's coming word of mouth, though. I think like if I'm going to evaluate something new at this point, it's because someone in like the Revenue Collective or now Pavilion has said like, have you tried that? For example, Partner Stack, like this is a new one we're evaluating. It's the first time I've cared to evaluate something because it's a whole new function we're building out. We need a PRM. I went to her and I was like, who do you use? So mostly it's coming that way first, but definitely I have to speak to customers.
Andrea, we just signed up for Partner Stack too, so we should share
sweet.
Stories. It's
okay,
our
great.
fourth PRM.
Oh, really? Okay, well,
Yeah.
I hope this is our first and only.
I think the word of mouth is a good thing to Andrea there. Like I want to know that someone else has had success with it. That's at my like peer level at least. And I want to hear that verbatim, word to word. I don't always necessarily ask the sales rep for a reference. But if I'm talking through to people like you or in any circles that I'm going through, I'll drop that. It's like, do you know a PRM? Do you know this? Like, tell me about your experience, sort of thing, to try and get that unbiased opinion, as opposed to just getting the sales reps like, oh, I know this customer likes us. Here's a phone number, sort of thing, because they're not going to give you somebody.
Yeah, it's like interviewing for a job. It's like you don't give your shittiest reference to your employer. You give like the best one. So it's like that's not helpful. I know for whatever reason, like it worked for this customer, but so I try to back channel technologies all the time.
Yeah, the back channel is key. Absolutely key.
Yeah. The word of mouth also is like, I guess, I don't know if it happens in our space, but I was just thinking like, do we get vendors or software thrown to us that have like the same kind of hype machine, like a Clubhouse, where it seems like the cat's meow this month and like everybody's using it, it's growing super fast, we got to get on this thing. But I guess we have the benefit, and like business software doesn't necessarily have that kind of thing where everybody has to jump onto it. I feel like some companies have had that, like maybe Gong, I would say. Doesn't hurt that they have things like Super Bowl ads that they run that helps the hype machine.
Yeah, but Bart, you know, the Gong's product is 5 stars. They have natural tailwinds because their product team built something really kick ass. So like as marketers, like, you know, checking that out before you take the role is like really important because you need this flywheel happening where not every deal you sign is because marketing spent $1 or sales like did some cold outreach. But that's why it's so important. You guys use Gong, by the way? Gong is in every.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, we use it.
We all use Gong.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually a great segue because you were all so nice to share your tech tools. So maybe we can jump onto those slides if that's great with everybody. So just switch over. I can't remember what order we have them in. So Bart, you put this one together showing the tech tools that we're using in marketing here. And, you know, there's oodles of them, which is a very mathematical term there. So do you want to walk us through some of these?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jackie went into the skeleton closet and pulled out all of the ones that, or saw some ones that may or may not be on her list. We certainly probably have some tech debt or baggage in the background, but I think these are kind of the front and center ones that we're using up front. And I've drawn a few of these. This is kind of an evolution of one that we've had for a little while, but I definitely think of when you look at the ways that you could look at a tech stack, I just think of it left to right from your initial leads or anything you're doing in market all the way through to your hub of technology. And sometimes there's a centerpiece that holds everything together. And I guess for us and most companies, it's like Salesforce and HubSpot for us, but it might be Amplitude or something like that. So I'd say if you're looking at it from the bottom up, it's HubSpot and Salesforce. That's the core of all the data, and everything else sort of attaches to it. But we certainly rely on partners a lot to get in front of customers and to help spread our word of mouth. We have a bunch of inbound channel activity that's supported by tech, paid channels, of course, social, and that's one that we've been focusing more on this year. And I'd love to hear people's backgrounds on if there's tech to help support social, particularly with influencers and growing social organic reach. That's a big focus area for us. And then we're a sales-driven business. There is no self-onboarding. So in order to support the sales cycle and the sales business between having competitive intel and the appropriate tools for sales folks, there's a hub inside of automation data enrichment before it goes into CRM for the salespeople. Do you want to keep going? Should we do all of ours, or do people want to ask questions on mine?
Bart, who's your ideal customer profile? Like, because, you know, I think you have account based over here on like the right. So I think people, you know, marketers tend to sort of like are overloading that one now with like 6 Sense and other like account based tools. Are you selling? Who do you sell to?
So we sort of spread it out because it was initially kind of a sales product or inside of just revenue teams that focus on driving sales. And our customer profile focuses now more on also customer service teams. So when you look at it, the people that support that are a spectrum of a data steward that's trying to tie data together, which we help support in the function of automation. We have sales and revenue teams that help drive more activity through hitting sales quotas. And then we also have customer service and management that's trying to help in understanding of retention or upsell opportunities or what the future looks like in terms of account growth. So try to actually step away from verticals because we implemented a jobs to be done framework to think about how we sell our product. And that's less about being vertical specific and more about the job that we're being hired by the customer to do. And so resultingly, kind of those profiles from data steward all the way to CSM and revenue teams are kind of how we think about who we're selling into.
let's jump to the next. So Patrick, you're up.
Yeah, I'll go and I'll start with Andrew's question of target market or ICP, just so it makes sense within that. We're primarily a self-service driven company that had added a sales touch through the life cycle of the organization. I've been with the company for a little over 5 years now, so most of this is my fault in terms of this tech stack. So I didn't get to inherit sort of anything. So if there's anything here, I can pretty much be blamed for some part of it, or cheered on. But basically, we have a primarily self-serve function with a really key part of lead scoring in the middle in terms of where you fit from a firmographic perspective to make sure that you're going down the correct sort of buyer journey, depending on your kind of firmographic size that maps to the value that we provide. So in the middle, there's a lot of data work that goes in there to make sure that we do kind of point the buying behavior down either a sales touch motion or a self-serve motion. And that's supported by kind of data from things like Clearbit, data warehouse, and manipulation of of data of usage information on top of the firmographic information. That kind of logic all lives in Marketo in terms of lead scoring, and then handing off to sales side on the right side of this, if it is that sales motion. But if it's not going to be that sales motion, then we need to automate as much of it as possible. So fairly traditional marketing automation and nurture campaigns in terms of email and retargeting paid advertising that fits into that side of the equation. Any questions from anybody?
Have questions?
Patrick, what's your favorite tool on here? What's the live or die one?
That's funny. I know we're talking about that live or die one, and I'm kind of like, I don't really care. Like I created this, and it's something to be said about this tech stack that you could probably, I could tell you 2 or 3 other tools that could replace almost any of these. And I don't want to go down that path because I know how much time and investment it takes to rip and replace them. But if I could flip my fingers and rip and replace a few and automatically train the team up on them, I'd probably be okay with it. Like, I'm more concerned about how the team is executing on the tech stack than the tech stack itself. And I'm saying that as someone that's pretty nerdy when it comes to the tech stack itself.
Very diplomatic of you.
Oh, talk to me a little bit about Segment, because Segment is something I'm kind of, I'm thinking we have all these tools. How can we not do this with all of the tech we already have?
Yeah.
So what does Segment do for you that you can't get with the other tools?
Absolutely. So Segment, in terms of they're pitching the idea of the CDP, the customer data platform, but essentially for us, where it pays the most dividends off is from tracking application user behavior once, and then using that as a source of truth, either sending it into Redshift as a data warehouse to collect that to do data manipulation in something like Mode as just a reporting dashboard, or passing that data point through Segment through to Salesforce, to Marketo, to Gainsight, to Intercom, so that there is one single source of truth of, well, what's the sign up date? What's the first time that they did this action? All of those sort of like user profile related action things, instead of leveraging the tracking technology of all of those tools, putting tracking scripts and JavaScript in our application and on our marketing site that's basically saying the same thing and passing that to every tool. Segment tracks it once and then passes that data through to the other platforms. And there's a certain level of cleanup and manipulation that you can do on top of that. But that's really I see the core value proposition of Segment is our developers implement one thing of tracking, and then our team can pass that through to whichever tool Segment integrates with.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. We'll jump to the next slide here. So Andrea.
Yeah, mine's not as pretty as everyone else's. This is just like a list, but similar to everyone else, where the goal is really just to track, most of what we're doing here, specific to like optimizing some engine, for example, like Salesforce and Marketo are like the standard for collecting data, but like Chili Piper makes booking meetings easier. Sendoso makes sending direct mail easier. So there's not, I would say there's nothing out of the ordinary with our revenue operations stack, but when we decide to make a purchase for technology, it's for a very specific thing. Like I said, that usually takes the place of a human being. Like we couldn't do not do this on our own. And so this is the list across the board: marketing, customer success, sales, and finance. We're actually moving to NetSuite on the finance side, but anyway, get boring, but if you want to take a
What are you using?
snapshot.
What are you using Zapier for? Integration, I suppose, to something?
Yeah. There's a few of these tools like Unbounce. We send that information. I think we're using it to send information somewhere else because Unbounce couldn't send it there. So it only have a few zaps going, but helpful when you need to connect things that just won't on their own.
Mm-hmm.
But Upplers, I like they consider themselves a technology, but we just like upload emails to them, designed emails, and then they spit it back as HTML. There has to be people doing it, but that's been an awesome time saver for us.
You know what
So
amazes
you do it
me?
just in Photoshop, and then they take a Photoshop file and they make it HTML.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think there's a person doing it, but they're technology. So
Wow.
Yes, I look at some of these, like, so I recognize most of the names, but there are names on here that I don't recognize. And I think all of us have names that, we all kind of go, huh, what's that? Right. And we lean in and we look at the site, and we're presented every year with that big, massive spreadsheet of all of the, revenue tech stack logos. You can't even see the logos anymore. They're so small. And somehow we filter through to the list, right? And it just amazes me that we're able to cobble together a collection of tools that actually work together out of that big, massive page.
Jackie, but like if you think about it, right, like probably 80% of this list is someone told me, check it out, So I'm like, I'm a marketer saying like word of mouth is the best marketing there is, but so if there are any product people, that's the best marketing there is. Build good products. It helps.
Absolutely.
But even though it's a big list, I feel a little bit less stressed looking at it than I guess 5 years ago, where it's like, it really seemed like an overburden of so much tech. But now, I don't know, maybe it's just because of integration tools like Zapier or Segment that it's easier to bring stuff in and out. And it's just, part of business as usual. Whereas before it was like, oh my God, I don't have like technical enough people on the marketing team, and I don't have like engineering resources. That seems now like it's gone away more so.
Yeah, they made it a little easier to use. The one I would say that I can't live without is Marketo. That one, though, I think is probably 80% of our marketing ops time. The best part about Marketo is that it's highly flexible. The worst part about that is like you can build into like, I don't know, nonstop building inside of it, but that's the one I probably can't live without.
Awesome. We'll jump to the next slide here.
Yeah, so I did mine a little bit differently. I did mine by category. And what was really interesting to me as I was building this out was we have a number of things in each category, right? So ideally, we would only have one in each category, but there's a reason for having multiple things in each category, right? So it's that whole concept of jobs to be done, right? They do almost all of the job, but then there's a little piece, or they do half of the job, and then we need something to do the other half of the job in terms of the jobs to be done piece, right? So for example, if you look at chat, we have Drift enabled on our website for chat, but we have Zendesk enabled for customer support chat because we need the Zendesk ticketing system. And it just makes sense for the support team to also use Zendesk chat because they're already in that system and that's their key system. But it would be awesome to have chat that runs all the way from the beginning to the end, like into the product, into Zendesk, into the website, right? Even, and I know that there are platforms that do aggregate all of the chat together. But even, the chat that you have on ads that you can have, just the ability to carry chat throughout would be amazing. And then product intelligence, right? We have both Pendo and Full Story. They do two different things, but they provide us with insight into the behavior of folks in our product, which is so incredibly important to us. So Patrick, you were talking about, you started with an automated self-serve motion, and now you're bringing on a direct sales motion. We started with the direct sales motion, and now we're trying to enable the self-serve automated motion. And so products like Pendo and Full Story are super important for us to really truly understand the customer journey inside of our product and make that a better experience for them. So there is a reason for everything on this page. All of these are active systems that we're using today for various different functions. Some are newer than others. So we've just implemented, for example, Reprise to do a live product demo on our website. It's like a product demo tour with pop-ups where you can actually take people through use cases for your product. So that's something that's fairly new that we're experimenting with at the moment. VWO is something that we've just implemented. So experimenting with that at the moment in terms of building out our growth marketing program. So a lot of really interesting new things that we are working with to make our marketing team more efficient and also scalable, right? So our marketing team is growing incredibly quickly, and we really need resources for the team to be able to work effectively.
Which one is the can't do without, Jackie?
So Salesforce, right?
Salesforce,
It's the foundation of everything. You could not
outside of
prize
that.
you could not prize Salesforce. So I am in love with Gong. Actually, I'm in love with Looker as well. So to me, it's all about getting to source of truth, right? I really need to know source of truth in order to make informed decisions. So Looker gives me access to all the data. We have the data from all of our systems flowing into Snowflake, and then we can access that information with Looker from a reporting perspective. And so if I have a question about anything, I can find the answer in the data, except for customer voice, right? And that's when I turn to Gong. So if I have, there's somebody has a question about what is the perception of Avik versus, X competitor, I can go into Gong and I can search for every conversation that where a customer has brought up that competitor, and I can listen to the customer say, this is my description of X competitor. And so then I really understand Avik's positioning or Avik's differentiators as it relates to that competitor. So that information that might not have been super accessible to us as marketers before, sales is on the front lines all the time, they hear it all the time. This actually allows us to not rely on people to translate that information for us, but to go right to the root and really feel the conversations and understand the nuances as those conversations are happening. So I'd say Gong is pretty important, Looker's pretty important. Yeah, I love a lot of them actually.
I love Jackie, how you put that in terms of the sort of go-to-market function importance for the technology versus how much you like it. Because like, of course, Salesforce or Marketo, your marketing automation, your CRM, they're going to be pillars of your tech stack. Do you like them is a whole other question on top of it. It's like you can't do without it. It's going to be there in some form. Do you wish it was better? Yes. Do you wish it could do a bunch more stuff? Yes, but it is a pillar. You can't kind of live without it, at least for now. And the thought of tearing it out is like a nightmare. You're worried you'd get fired if you tried to do that, because it could totally ruin your revenue stream for if something goes wrong. But then there's those other tools that are complementary to your go-to-market function that you need to do that you also maybe like or don't need. So I might be jumping ahead here. I think there was another question about like, how does your tools map to your go-to-market function? I think that's the core piece. That like this tech stack is going to look different should look different for every business. Don't copy someone else's and just apply it to your own business, because it needs to know what value is it adding to you. And ideally the one that you can't live without is just the ones that is closely tied to whatever go-to-market function you have. So like ours evolved pretty significantly on the sales motion side because it had to, because we introduced that, and yours is evolving as on you go to more of the self-serve motion. And it's, well, but where does the majority of that revenue come from now? And where do you want it to come from 6 months, 5 years from now in terms of the future? And that's build your tech stack around that. That was my answer, where I was like, I don't really care what the tool is, like, but it needs to deliver in terms of what my go-to-market function and my result. And I'll actually change my answer because it's similar to your Snowflake and Looker of most important. Excel is still my most important marketing tool. Like just be perfectly
I go
honest.
back to Excel every time.
Yeah, it's my most important marketing tool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the number one competitor for all of us, right? I will say, Andrea, just coming back to your question, the one that has transformed my life, Calendly. Which is like, seriously, right? It's the easiest to deploy, easiest to buy, easiest to use.
It's really wonderful. Yeah.
Saves me so much time.
Yeah.
And enables me to get stuff done, right? With folks outside of the organization. If I didn't have it, I'd be in trouble.
Totally agree.
I was just thinking about your answer in terms of what do you like and what draws that sense of maybe emotion rather than just process in choosing one of these. And I suppose software that kind of delights you in some way is what becomes really sticky or memorable out of a stack that otherwise just is mechanical. You know, maybe we loved HubSpot more in the past, but now it's machinery, it seems like, in the background. And I guess Looker, you know, can provide some interesting ways to manipulate and get information. And I certainly think of, I used to use Ahrefs in the past, and it was like, I would look forward to like, all right, let's see what's going on here and find out if we're improving or how rankings are doing and what competitors are doing. And maybe if there's something that I just took away in that in terms of when we sell software, it's important to, I think, highlight beyond the mechanics of what the thing does, what is the surprise and delight that it can do for customers.
Yeah. Definitely.
So Jackie, you had mentioned that your team is growing quite quickly, and we have a similar kind of growing pains at Introhive. So I'll direct to Bart, how do you balance more hires versus more Martech tools?
We had a conversation just recently about hiring and how to think about hiring. I do have a couple of rules on this that, you know, was part of this earlier conversation around choosing technology versus people. But so one is, I think if technology serves a purpose to solve a need that is otherwise manual, it's often better to do that and start with it because it's easier typically to start and stop or modify and scale up. But one thing I think that is evolved a lot, especially in our department versus if you were to consider another department like finance or maybe engineering even in a way, is like how much the roles and people have changed on our teams in the last few years versus other teams. Like there is just people that are in roles you wouldn't have expected 5 or 10 years ago. Certainly when I finished school, there was no Google Analytics, there was no like preparation on, you know, working with websites. In fact, all of the stuff and tools that we do when I was finishing school 20 years ago, like it wasn't even a conversation. So I think that in choosing technology, you first have to have or people even a runway of how long is this particular need going to be there for. And we have one example right now where we have a manual process where we can't figure out how to automate. And certainly that could be a person doing it, but they would eventually probably be unhappy about this very widget manual work. And so in my mind, it's always contract work first for independence for a period of time to see, is this thing something that we're going to stick with? And if it is, at that point, we can think about either that person as a conversion or putting a role out there full time. And in that process, we figure out, can it be automated or can we choose technology in that particular way? So it's a bit of a 2-horse race around, you know, can it be automated through technology? That goes first. If it can't, we haven't figured that out yet. If we don't know that this is a role that lives for more than a year or longer, we look at contract first in order to not take the headcount, and then decide if it's core and mission critical to us that we should have it inside of the team, inside of the organization, and then hire people in.
Yes, that's an interesting question, Ashley. I have not done the exercise of people versus technology. When I think about a job to be done, in my mind, it's either this is a people job or this is a technology job. I will say I'm seeing a trend though, in that every time I hire a new person, I have to buy at least one new technology, right? Because I'm adding a function right? I'm not just adding more of the same using the same tools. I'm adding a new function, and with that new function comes new enabling technology for that function. So it's almost like an and versus an or, if that makes sense.
Great.
Yeah, I'll echo a similar sort of thing as if you're adding a new function, you're going to need a new thing. But the opposite is if you're not adding a new function, you're just adding more team members. Are they leveraging the technology as best as they can? And are you getting that extra ROI out of? And that's kind of the proof of if your technology works. If you add more people into that process, is the technology flywheel adding more value every single time, or is it diminishing returns in terms of like, well, I've got more people here now, but there's no automation improvement. And the other side of that is like, well, could I do more with less people if I had better automation? I think that's sort of like the question that is put out there a lot by technology companies and saying like, yeah, your people will be more efficient, so you don't need as many full-time employees. The way I kind of think is similar to BART is like, if you need the person, test it with outsourcing or contracting work first. Prove the function, the business function first. Then decide, is this a human being function? Is this an automated function? Prove the value within the company. And then to Jackie's point, like if it's a brand new thing, then you're probably going to need to bring on in a technology to support that function.
Yeah, it's almost always a person to solve the problem, and then does a technology make them more efficient? That's how I'm evaluating it. But yeah, in some cases like Marketo, there's no number of people that could solve for automating all of that work. So in that case, it's clear ROI for a tool, but always a trade-off.
I'll bring up one situation. I'll throw myself under the bus of scenarios where I brought on tools and didn't have the people to even like use it. It didn't get adopted. So like, I think it's a great idea. I'm the leader. I choose like it's site personalization, for example, like where we're leveraging data coming in and like, I want to change the headline of the page if you're in this industry versus this industry. Very logical thing that a lot of marketers want to do in terms of a personalized experience, but it didn't get adopted by the team. And I personally didn't have the time. I shouldn't be the one that was putting all of these campaigns sort of through. And there I paid this annual contract and tried to get the onboarding via the customer success rep, via the automated onboarding that the team provides, and it never got adopted. Now that's ultimately on me. I chose it and I asked the team to do it. But if you didn't have full buy-in from the team and the concept, then there's a good example of wasted choice of team. I could have spent that budget on a person to do some other thing and it would have had a
yeah. See, Patrick, you're way more involved in technology buying than I am. Like if we're buying technology, it's because someone has a critical, it's painful to get their job. I'm not saying like we're buying this technology and this is what we're going to do with it. It's definitely like bottoms up. So I don't, that's how I think I've solved for whether or not it would get adopted. It's because I'm not deciding. It's like somebody needs to be like very painful.
Yeah, I learned those lessons the hard way, Andrea. So I agree with you. You need the implementer on your team to be implementing it. You can't just say, go use this tool. For most cases, I mean, CRM, Marketo, or Pardot, it's going to be there, and but you also need to have good training for your team, whether that's via your CSM, via their automated training, or via your own internal like learning management system to train people how to use Salesforce at your company. That's part of whatever operations or leadership in terms of onboarding employees and making them effective. But if you bring in a brand new tool for a broader sense of the team and you didn't have like a true rollout strategy, then it's doomed to fail.
Yeah, I think you're bang on, Patrick. Yeah, like when you're considering it. So first of all, you need to clearly understand the objective you're trying to accomplish, right? Like, why are we even looking at this technology? Are we proactively looking at it, or because some BDR reached out to us and we were like, oh, that's interesting, right? Like, what is the strategy around the tool? Time to evaluate, time to purchase, time to roll it out. How do we build it into our processes to make sure that we're using it on an ongoing basis, right? You really need to think through, especially some of these larger ones that are super expensive. You need to think through that whole process, or it's just not going to be a success.
I guess that's one thing I'm hearing too, and it's pretty clear. Like you look at the revenue impact or the cost impact of buying some software, but probably in there we need to look at a line item of who's the person that owns this software beyond
Yeah.
marketing ops in the usability of it, like the directly responsible individual for regular
Yeah.
usage, and ensure that they're used and on board. We have a sales enablement tool. That's a great tool, but damn it, nobody wants to own it.
Yeah.
It's too much work. And so where do you think it lives? In the closet right now.
Yeah, I like accountability for tools and like reporting out on like, yeah, it's adoption. I like that idea, Bart. I'm going to use that one. It's a good idea.
All right, we're coming up on time here, and we have, I think everyone sort of touched on this a little bit, but I'll just ask, where do you think the biggest gaps are in Martech tools today? And I know we'll have a lot of thoughts here, so I'll throw that into the pit and let you jump on it, whoever wants to go first.
I'll go. So I want a tool, top of my list, for managing budget. So I know that there are tools out there that do this, but I want to know the company plan budget, how I'm going to mess with it, right? Because I'm going to either spend a little bit more or a little bit less, right? To make sure that I come in where I need to come in. What's been forecasted by the team in terms of what they're actually going to spend, what's been spent or committed, and then what's been reconciled, right? Like I need full visibility of all of those things. And I have yet to find a system that very clearly shows me exactly where I'm at. Has the invoice come in? Have we paid the invoice, right? So I need a fairly sophisticated system that's super easy to use and transparent and gives me the information that I need super easily. So I'm striving to find that. I need a tool for managing all the software, right? To make sure that I'm not missing renewal deadlines and all that kind of stuff. Either that or Andrea, I just need to be able to like strike that out in terms of the renewal stuff. Intello?
Yeah, and
Okay.
Intello. It's more of a cross-functional one for like the org, Jackie, because you don't know where the licenses are. But anyway, check that one out.
Yes. Our IT team is actively investigating that one. And then I need a tool for making these stackies, right? What I want is a place where I can go and say, this is all the technology I'm using. Make me a slide by category that shows what the tech stack looks like right now, because it changes all the time and people are changing their logos all the time, and you want to be respectful of people's logos. But how cool would it be to just like take that big chart of all the marketing software and just be able to go click, 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 make me a slide for my next webinar presentation, and let's go. So those are my 3 wishes. Next.
You just gave someone like a great idea for like a freemium product that they could put advertising on or something, in terms of like, that shouldn't be too hard to build, but I want it too. So I'll echo everything Jackie said, and I'll drop the easiest, biggest bombs. I just want someone to disrupt HubSpot, Pardot, and Marketo from a marketing automation perspective. I'm not going to probably adopt it in the next year, maybe the next 2, but I want, who's next? It's been too long.
Yeah.
The UI of them all pretty much suck. There's bugs that people just seem to live with and are okay with, and every next CMO is bringing in one of those to the next job that they have. So who's going to disrupt that space? It's been too long. There's got to be something better. Specifically, I'm thinking B2B, B2B sales or B2B marketing, but that's on my wish list. I hope there is at least another alternative that gets added into that conversation within the next 5 years.
I got one for you, quick one. Historical annotations of what's happened in the past from all of your channels. So when you're doing a quarterly report or a summary, you're like, why is traffic dropped 50% on this day? Or why is there a decrease in revenue in this quarter? There could be, just like in Google Analytics annotations, there could be a place that says, oh, we lost 5 salespeople that day, and that's why for that period, there's decreased revenue, or it was there was a power outage in the southern US, so nobody was online. I'd like a tool where you could go back instead of trying to scratch your head at the end of the quarter and figure out what the hell happened here.
We use spreadsheet when we remember.
That's the key.
I said data science as a service. That's the last one I had. Just like Looker and reporting is fine, but nobody's giving me insights. Like, where should I invest the next dollar? I mean, that's my part of my job, but it'd be helpful if I got like some insights on that.
Awesome.
So we're
Well,
looking at, yeah, Andrea, we're looking at Vericent for that. So haven't
Who is
bought
it?
it yet, but Vericent.
I was looking at Explorium, but I'll put that one on the list.
I'll put Explorium on my list. See, this is how it's done.
Well, this was awesome, you guys. I want to thank all of you for giving up an hour of your time today. I certainly learned a lot. I'm sure that all of our attendees did as well. And, for the folks who have joined us today, if you have any questions that you want to shoot through to us, we would be happy to circulate them with this group and get some answers back to you. I will mention we have a little phase 2 coming. So for all of our registrants and our attendees today, I believe on Friday, Patrick from Introhive and I will be hosting a LinkedIn Live to hand out some fun prizes for folks who chose to register. So we have, I believe, 2 Spotify memberships for 1 year, an Apple Watch, so you can get competitive with your coworkers, and a weighted blanket. So stay tuned for that. You can check out our LinkedIn for the details on that. And otherwise, I hope everyone has a really great day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks again, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
See you later.
Bye now.
Bye.